Hi everyone, it's William with the 1921 series, and I'm trying to orient myself slightly differently today. My bad tooth is on this side, and I always hate looking at it when I watch my videos back. So yeah, a little bit of vanity. But anyway, I was asking myself, why do you always do it on that side then? And I realized it's because my bad eye is also on this side. So I'm gonna try and do it despite that. Maybe I'll try and make the print on my computer even a little bigger, and we'll see if it's worth making that concession to vanity or not. I suppose I could reassure myself with the idea that Dimitri's teeth were also awful. And by that time, by the time 1921 rolled around, he'd already had multiple teeth pulled, and he had at least partial dentures, which he'd gotten in London. Okay, I also have a friend today. So my dog was eyeing this just a minute ago. I think it was my mother's, but we'll see if he takes a stab at getting it while we're doing this. So why do I have a monkey? Well, you will see as the diary entry goes along. And no, it has nothing to do with Alexander I of Greece, who was a friend of Dimitri's and who ended up dying of a monkey bite that turned septic. But that, by 1921, that was in the past. Okay, so here we go. We are back in Paris. In the previous diary entry, we were in transit. It was Christmas Day, and we were in transit between Monte Carlo and Paris. Apparently, it was an overnight train trip. So today is not Christmas Day, but it's the day for Dimitri and Maria and Giulia to celebrate Christmas with family members, with their closest family members. So this is something I think that almost all families, unfortunately, can relate to, the need to do Christmas celebrations with family members, not on Christmas Day, but before or after because of travel plans or divided families or whatever. But anyway, that is what we are up to today. So it's the 8th of January on the Julian calendar, the 26th on the Gregorian calendar. The year is 1921. It's a Saturday. It's Paris. And Dimitri notes that he is writing in his apartment, which was at 76 Rue Miro-Menil. He literally puts his street address on every diary entry at this period of his life. All right, we arrived in Paris at 9:30 a.m. and we all took the same bus from the station. First, we saw Sofka home and then went to Maria's for breakfast. I went home around 11 o'clock. Sevodnya hadn't arrived yet because he was taking another train. I had lunch at Maria's, and then she and I went shopping. She was looking for a blank for Giulia. I bought Irina and Natasha some beautiful English books. I had tea at Maria's. Sybil Crisavalloni came, and I went to the Ritz with her and ran into the Vichfelds there. Maria, Giulia, and I dined at Mamochka's. She had organized a frightfully nice Christmas dinner and gave us expensive gifts. For me, an armchair, one of Papa's suitcases, and a metal monkey. It was terribly touching and sweet. I was a little ashamed that I hadn't gotten her anything. We stayed there until midnight, and I went straight home. Okay, very, very interesting. So they're taking the bus. If that surprises you, then it really shouldn't at this point, because they didn't have cars. Dimitri had even sold his motorcycle when he moved to Paris. And the first time he took the bus, just a public bus in in London was actually, ironically, when he was going for his first visit to George V and Mary at Buckingham Palace, and he was going with his aunt Maria Georgievna, his mother's sister, who had spent the war and the revolution in England with her two daughters, and they were invited to go off to Buckingham Palace, and Dmitri simply noted of the irony of the fact that Romanovs were now going to Buckingham Palace in a bus. But he adjusted to that, and apparently the rest of them did it as well. I mean, Sofka was a wealthy woman, but she was also a good sport, I guess, and she got on the bus with them. So Sofka, being the wife of the very successful Alexander Polovtsov, and they made sure she got home all right, and then they all went to Maria's and had breakfast, and by 11 o'clock, so within an hour and a half of arriving in Paris, Dmitri himself was at home. So I'm sure I would have offended Shagubatov, the adjutant, if he knew that I'd gotten him mixed up with Savoynya, the peasant valet. So Savoynya had been, he went to Monte Carlo a day in advance of Dmitri, and he will be returning to Paris, it looks like the day after Dmitri. So he's the one who has to wrangle the trunks and that sort of thing. Okay. Then lunch at Maria's, and you kind of get the impression that, yeah, maybe Gulia had a little bit of reason for resenting Dmitri just because he's always there, which is hard, for any married couple, I think, to have an in-law or a sibling always present. But he and Maria go off shopping to buy Christmas gifts. She's getting something for Gulia. Dmitri has this bad habit that I think is a pretty common one when he's writing and he comes to the end of the line and there's no room left. He tries to cram the word into the margin. And yeah, that makes it very difficult to read. But she was buying something for Gulia, and Dmitri had had this experience, I think, the previous year of having gotten gifts from his little sisters and not having gotten them anything himself. And this year, he's not going to make that mistake, so he buys them some, what he refers to as some beautiful editions, some beautiful books in English. A very nice gift from a person's big brother. I wish he'd told us what books he picked out for them. Then he goes by Maria's for tea, but he doesn't stay long because Sybil Crisovaloni is there from the wealthy banking family, Romanian banking family, and we've already talked about how they were patron and patroness of Dmitri and Maria, who were in straitened circumstances, and how Sybil actually even furnished Dmitri's apartment for him and was paying for the apartment and had furnished it. Okay, so Dmitri and Sybil go off to the Ritz, I guess just because they're heading in the same direction, and even though he wasn't staying there, the Ritz was pretty much the center of Dmitri's social life in Paris, as we've seen, because it's the place where all his friends gather. And there he runs into the Vichfelds. You remember them, the Axel and his wife. I can't remember the wife's name, but then there's a sister, Monica, who apparently is not in England, in France, but back in England, which is where Dmitri really got to know them. Anyway, he runs into them and apparently just says hello or has a drink or something. He doesn't tell us, because then he has a dinner engagement. He and Maria and Gulia go off for their belated Christmas dinner at the home of mamochka. So mamochka is Princess Olga Palais. And any of you who watched the video for the diary entry of 17th of, what was it, 17th of March 1906, March or April, remember what Dmitri called his stepmother then. He called her a nasty beast. Well, she's no longer a nasty beast. She's Mamochka. And that's not a new nickname. He started calling her that before the revolution. And I think he always appreciated, after that initial rough patch before he'd gotten to know her, and back when he and Maria both thought that she was the person who was keeping their father from reconnecting with them, I think he had warmer feelings toward her than Maria did. But I can't remember what I'm basing that on. I don't think Maria ever called her Mamochka at any rate. Kind of makes me think of our presidential candidate now in the United States, Kamala Harris, and her stepkids call her Mamala. So Dmitri called his stepmother Mamochka. And the two little half-sisters, of course, he's well prepared for that. He gives them their gifts, but oh boy, he hasn't gotten anything from Mamochka. I wonder if Maria got anything for her, because here she is lavishing gifts on them, and she may have had a little more money than he and Maria did, but I can't imagine she had much. And she gives him an armchair for his flat. Wow, that is an expensive gift. I'm sure it wasn't a second-rate one. And then she gives him one of Paul's suitcases. And previously, she'd given him some of Paul's clothes. Back in 1920, when she'd first reached France, she had made sure that she'd gotten some of Paul's clothes. But I think for the most part, they didn't fit him. But anyway, so now he has one of the suitcases. And what the heck is a metal monkey? I have no idea. Let's see. I think, had Art Deco become a thing yet, or was it still Art Nouveau, Jugendstil? I don't know. Was this an sort of objet d'art, or was it a toy, like a mechanical monkey? But gosh, I would like to see that. All right, and he's very touched by it. He may not be a person who expresses his emotions in person, but he certainly expresses his emotions in his diary entries. And let's see, and he's ashamed. Well, yeah, old boy, I guess you should be ashamed, although I certainly have done this myself, where you don't anticipate somebody giving you a gift, and they do, and you don't have one for them, and it is one of the most awkward situations that a human being can be in. All right, they stay till midnight, so, maybe 4 hours or so, and then he goes straight home. And this diary entry leaves me with one big question, and that is, what did Dmitri and Maria get for each other? In the past, he has talked about that on various occasions, the gifts that they get for each other. But on this occasion, he doesn't say, and maybe they didn't get anything for each other. Maria got something for her husband, but maybe the two of them didn't get anything for each other, maybe out of financial considerations. At any rate, if we look at the three criteria, the historical significance, the noteworthy people that are mentioned in diary entries, and what we learn about Dmitri himself, well, again, this is not one of the diary entries that talks about historical events. But as for Dmitri, the main thing we're looking at, occasionally there are surprising things, but the main thing we're really looking at is how consistent he is across weeks and months and even years, how his personality, how his maturity, how his outlook on things evolves. And so here, we see yeah, how he is in with his family, and how he finds that touching, and clearly enjoys himself and likes that warm environment, and that's something that he's consistently looking for in his life and enjoys whenever he gets a taste of it. And we also see that, yeah, he's not a complainer. I shouldn't say specifically so much from this diary entry, but from the diary entries leading up to this point, he talks at great length about his distress at losing family members and missing Russia, and not knowing what the future holds. But as far as little things like needing to take the bus and stuff like that, he's not a complainer, and I like that about him. Okay, and about people of note, well, any of you who are interested in the Palais, in Princess Olga Palais and Natalia and Natasha, he calls her, but Natalia and Irina, or Irene, then this will be of interest to you. And I need to do a little more research on them and find out what age the girls were at that time. And I think I read Princess Palais. She wrote memoirs. So any of you who are interested in her, maybe you probably already know about those memoirs. But if this is the first time that you're thinking, oh, she sounds like an interesting person, she wrote memoirs, and I need to go through my documents so I can tell you the name of those memoirs, the title of those memoirs, and when they were published, and maybe take a glance at them myself and see if she talks about spending Christmas with her stepchildren and the ways in which they succeeded to becoming more of a family, or what her perspective was on that, on her brother-in-law, and on Maria and Dmitri individually. I can't remember that she talks a great deal about that, unfortunately, but I should really renew my acquaintance with her. Okay, I still have this instinct to turn in this direction, so maybe I'll just go back to that. Anyway, thank you as always for tuning in. I forgot to look ahead and remind myself of what happens in the next diary entry. So that will be, because I completely don't remember. So that will be a surprise for all of us. All right, I'll see you next time. Bye.